Alright, today we're going to do a short video about the probably the quickest way to improve your game in PUBG on the Xbox One. So the quickest way to get an advantage, so if you've played PUBG on Xbox for any amount of time, you've undoubtedly seen the melted crayons or Play-Doh effect. When you first drop, especially in a busy area, buildings haven't completely loaded in yet, loot hasn't loaded in yet, and you've probably seen people running around looting right then. So they have a huge advantage on you because their stuff is already loaded in, either because they are playing on an Xbox One X, maybe an Xbox One S, or they have an external hard drive. So I noticed a few weeks ago that my friends that were using external hard drives to run PUBG were loading in faster than I was on my stock internal drive on my Xbox One Day 1 edition. And that got me thinking, it's like, okay, you can actually upgrade your hardware, get better performance. So I ordered a external solid state disk for my Xbox One. This one is an ADATA, and I'll show it here in the video. But basically it's 256 gigabyte, it has USB 3.0, and those are the two requirements for an external hard drive to work on the Xbox One. It has to be a minimum of 256 gigs, and it has to have USB 3.0. So I plugged it into my Xbox One, I moved PUBG over to this drive, and I ran some before and after tests. Unfortunately, the Xbox DVR capture thing is kind of finicky in how it decides or what it decides to actually record. But what I found was very interesting. So I noticed a big speed increase right away. Booting the game from the dashboard, it was 33% faster in just booting up the game, okay? When I booted the game from the dashboard on the SSD, it was only about 21 seconds to get up, loaded, ready to start a game. On my normal internal drive, it was over 30 seconds to boot up. The next thing I noticed is when I was dropping, buildings and the tops of buildings and loot was loading in before I hit the ground. I've yet to have a melted crayon incident on the SSD, so now I can drop in zones that are more crowded and start looting right away and have a better chance of winning. Because one of the keys to PUBG is getting good loot right away, and one of the ways to do that is to drop somewhere where there's a lot of good loot, and that also happens to be a crowded area. So you're gonna have to encounter people quickly, and if you can see the guns before they can, and if you can go in the buildings before they can, you've got an inherent advantage right away. So this is gonna give you a big edge on the battlefield. The next test that I did was related to loading back in after a crash, because the game crashes all the time, as I'm sure you're well aware. So before, it would take several minutes, like 2 or 3 minutes minimum. I did manage to get a side-by-side captured, and I'll show you. The start to finish from the crash, basically back to dashboard, loaded in with the SSD, was 55 seconds, back into the game. Without it, it was like 3 or 4 minutes. And I have a side-by-side where basically on that black screen, when you start hearing game audio, that's where they're synced up. So I start playing from there, and you'll see how much faster the SSD goes in. In fact, it was 40 seconds faster from when you start hearing the game audio. So huge. I mean, I think it cuts it in half, at least, maybe even better than that. It might cut it by a much bigger margin. So you load in much faster. When you hit the ground, you can get loot right away. In this first example, I'm going to show you side-by-side loading from the dashboard. On the left-hand side is my original kind of stock internal hard drive. Right-hand side is the SSD, and you'll see the SSD just blows it away. It loads so much faster. In this next example, the left-hand side is the original hard drive, right-hand side is the SSD, and I started this video right when the audio actually picks up, so when you're loading in. So the SSD has already gotten a big time advantage by this point, but it just continues to add to it. And just within this little short time frame of when the audio comes on, there's a 40-second difference in the loading time. So cumulatively, overall, between the two, I bet it was at least 2 minutes faster 2 minutes faster coming in after a game crash. So that's it for now. I just wanted to show a quick side-by-side, confirm that SSD does make a big difference. Even a normal external hard drive seems to load faster than the internal one that came with the Xbox One. So if you're looking to get a little bit of an advantage in PUBG, get those kills right off the drop and get into some good loot spots, a solid state drive is probably the best investment you can make. I picked this one up for $85, but you can shop around. I'll also post a link to the Amazon product in the description. That's it for now.